Owen Jones has been on Sky News debating Israeli influencer Hen Mazik. Here was an interesting moment.
I do understand why this conflict raises a lot of emotions. I think we need to focus on reality. And I understand, especially when you are Jewish or Palestinian or Arab, why you feel so connected to this conflict and really being hurt and upset. I'm upset, my family, my friends. I lost friends in October 7th. I don't understand why you are so
because I object to genocide, because I'm a human being.
And of course it's not a genocide. Because
I'm a human being, that's why.
I don't see why you care is a really, really poor argument to make on television, especially when you're talking about a war in which 30,000 people have been killed. Now, call it a genocide, call it a genocidal war, just say it's a war. I mean, the argument you shouldn't care, this isn't a big deal, is a poor one, right? Very, very weak argument. I have to say, sometimes where I'm more sympathetic to an argument of that style is when it comes to specific end states, one state, two state. I'm sort of like, as sort of like a British person with no real involvement in that, I do think leave that up to the people there to work out. I don't have a strong position on when it comes to end states, but I do have a very strong position when it comes to the systematic killing of civilians and the starvation of 2 million people, right? That's something where I don't think you need to have a connection to have really strong opinions. Let's go back to that debate there, because this is the moment which has really caused some controversy.
You're right, Britain doesn't supply that many arms, but if it ends arms sales, that then puts huge pressure on Germany, which has decided to make the Palestinian people pay for the grievous crimes it committed by attempting to exterminate the Jewish people.
Come on, have some decency.
And the second
I won't
point,
let you.
Well,
the memory of the Holocaust will not be used this way. How dare you? You're not Jewish. Don't do that.
It shouldn't
really,
be used.
Don't do it.
It shouldn't be used to force the Palestinians.
Even for you, it's a red line.
Shouldn't be used to force the Palestinians.
Let's be clear.
To pay for Holocaust. Now,
what are you saying? I think Hen believes that you are disparaging the memory of the Holocaust.
Of course, he just did.
No, I didn't.
I said that Germany is making Palestinians pay for the 6 million Jews that were killed in the Holocaust?
Yes, I absolutely
did. This is absolutely disgusting. I can't believe
I stand by what I said because it's absolutely true.
Are you saying that Germany is supporting Israel because of what happened?
Yes, it believes it can
rather than punishing the Palestinians.
It believes Germany has decided it can make up for its obscene guilt by forcing somebody else to pay for the crimes that Germany committed. It's a very straightforward point. There's nothing offensive about it. It's a very
of course it's offensive. I'm telling you it's offensive, and I'm a Jewish Israeli.
In terms of arms,
still will not take it back.
No,
because you don't care about Jews. Because you don't care about anti-Semitism.
You know what's interesting?
That exchange has seen lots of people hand-wringing about Owen Jones mentioning the Holocaust, which apparently no one is allowed to do. But what he said is uncontroversially true, right? On October the 12th, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said this: "Our own history, our responsibility deriving from the Holocaust makes it our permanent duty to stand up for the existence and security of the State of Israel. This responsibility guides us." Right? Since then, Germany has banned multiple protests in solidarity with Gaza. Its institutions have deplatformed various artists who've expressed solidarity with Palestinians, many of them Jewish, in fact. And the ridiculousness of their position peaked with this moment, when the German culture minister was forced to clarify at a film festival that she had only clapped for an Israeli filmmaker, not his Palestinian co-director. Aaron, this is this keeps happening, right? Someone goes on television and makes a really normal point, and then Twitter has just gone wild saying, "Oh my God, Owen Jones should never be invited back on television again." What do you make of it?
Owen Jones is cancelled again. Look, Michael, saying I'm offended isn't an argument. I'm offended. How dare you? How could you? I don't care. I don't care how offended you are. Like you say, Owen is right. Those are the facts. That's the point of journalism. You've literally shown a quote from Olaf Scholz said within a week of the October 7th massacres, which weren't massacres. It was a war crime. It was murder, as Owen at the time overtly said, making clear precisely what Owen is trying to say there. Of course, there is a connection between Germany's historical support for the State of Israel, arms sales to that country for many decades, of course, and their completely justified and understandable guilt about the largest mass murder in European history. Of course, those two things are connected. And I saw the response to this, and I'm just thinking, wow, these people have just created an alternative reality for themselves. Of course, they're like, Holocaust commemoration is now, and of course it should be, is central to the idea of post-war German citizenship. It's central to the idea of post-war German nationhood. And now we're going to pretend that isn't a thing. And if you do say that on TV, then you're going to be cancelled. And this is really key, Michael. I was defending Alan Duncan on Twitter, I think yesterday or the day before, and then Ben Kentish, who's a British Jewish journalist, I think he has a show on LBC. He doesn't have anything original or interesting to say, but I presume that's why he's got a show on LBC. He quote tweeted me and said, "Oh look, the people that minimised anti-Semitism in the Labour Party," even though I was literally on BBC alongside Lord Winston and Michael Portillo saying that the mural was anti-Semitic and anti-Semitic tropes. That counts for nothing, of course. He quote tweeted me and saying, apparently the people who are anti-Semitic in Labour are now making excuses for Alan Duncan. He couldn't actually rebut my argument, which is you're talking about this being anti-Semitic when the man, Alan Duncan, hasn't mentioned the word Jewish, Judaism, Jews. He's criticizing actually people who, for the most part, are not Jewish. But he couldn't rebut that. So, of course, he had to say, commentator Aaron Bastani, racist. And then you see it with Owen Jones. People can't rebut the point. So they have to say, I'm offended. You shouldn't be allowed back on here. This is awful. This is disgraceful. You're evil incarnate. Look, for the most part, Michael, the average punter has zero time for this. And I think what's interesting is that lots of pro-Israel people, because of the way that Twitter works now, it's almost like they're the radical left on Twitter from 10 years ago. Because they see their points of view being, echoed back to them on a social media platform, frankly, which very few people actually use, they think, oh yeah, everyone agrees with me. No, most people with half a brain cell know that Germany has the attitude it does towards Israel, the support it has for Israel because of its history. I mean, most people with a brain cell know that. And most people, and this is something I love actually about this country, I have to say, most people don't buy the whole, I want to cancel you. I'm not going to make a counter argument. You're just a bad person. You're evil. You shouldn't have the right to make your points anymore. People don't like that. They don't like it. And actually, it's a really clear, distinctive line in terms of the political debate in this country compared to somewhere like Germany. In Germany, actually, foreclosing spaces to criticize Israel has just been shocking to me. German civil society, I think, has collectively lost its mind. I think that's partly not possible in the UK, because there is at least still some remnant of the belief in opposing points of view, the right to freedom of speech, a belief that actually people should be able to say what they think, even if you don't agree with them. So, yeah, it's the exact same argument they make around the protests, right? Oh, we have to ban these protests, even though, of course, the vast majority of these people on these protests are very good people, law-abiding people, decent people, families, etc. They just oppose genocide. They just oppose 13,000 children being killed. They just oppose war crimes and collective punishment against civilians. They just oppose, as we heard earlier on with Alicia Kearns, the idea that Israel now has carte blanche to blow up diplomatic consulates and embassies around the world and break international law and international convention. That's what they oppose. But of course, no sensible person thinks you should be able to starve kids, blow up consulates, kill aid workers. No sensible person is going to say that. I think this is good. So what they have to do instead is libel, defame, slander the people making those arguments. That's the only route they've got available to them. And my worry is this, Michael. As this gets worse, and it will get worse, Israel has lost an ounce of credibility with the world and its wife on this issue now. It's gone. It is absolutely gone. When you've got the former head of MI6 saying that we should suspend weapon sales to Israel, or a vice chair of RUSI, it's finished, frankly, in terms of the debate in this country. And as it gets worse and more obvious that they are increasingly out of touch with global opinion on this, the kinds of arguments and smearing you've seen against Owen Jones in the last 24 hours, that will become even worse. And actually, us here at Novara Media, we should get ready for that. Because, like I say, nobody is willing to defend killing children, killing humanitarian aid workers, collective punishment, ethnic cleansing, war crimes. Nobody's willing to defend that. So it's going to get worse and worse and worse in terms of the character assassinations on people like Owen, by the way, who've been right all along.
Hen Mazik, the guy he was up against, tweeted, "There's nothing obscene about Germany holding itself accountable for murdering 6 million Jews. Germany, like the US, is Israel's ally because these countries face shared threats. Revising the history of the aftermath of the Holocaust to delegitimize Israel is Holocaust distortion." It's really insane to call Holocaust distortion, right? So Owen was making a very simple point, which is to say that in Germany, it's very difficult to criticize anything that Israel does because of the guilt they feel over the Holocaust. Now, it's not insane that Germany has a particular relationship to Israel, right? That's not insane, right? It's completely understandable how a nation that committed such a grave crime feels particularly sensitive in terms of its relationships with the world's only Jewish state, right? But it's also so fundamentally legitimate to say the way that Germany is now handling its relationship with Israel is deeply problematic, especially when it leads to the targeting of shed loads. I mean, it's mainly Muslims, I think, who are being targeted in Germany, but also lots of Jewish people. Anyone who says anything remotely sensible about Israel is now, completely isolated or marginalized from mainstream political discourse. That's such a reasonable thing to say. And then if you say that, you get accused of Holocaust distortion. Throwing around big words with not much care, Aaron. I suppose my final question to you, I do think it's undeniable that it was the left really that started this. So sort of saying someone said something on TV that I'm not in favor of, and I'm going to sort of try and make a bit of a Twitter storm to get producers to feel worried about inviting them back on. Some people might disagree. I think probably the left has, more responsibility for that than anyone else. I do think, though, it has sort of shifted to the center, and that maybe people on the left are getting a bit more relaxed about policing what people are saying, a bit more sort of understanding actually the importance of freedom of speech. And it's actually sort of people, especially in the center, who seem to be most paranoid about who is and who isn't allowed to say stuff. Do you think there's any truth to that, or have I just sort of changed who I'm following? I mean, on Twitter, what do you think?
Yeah, Elon changed the algorithm, Michael, and you've been hoodwinked. No, I think there's absolutely something to that. And I wouldn't say the left started this. I think they've certainly normalized it in a world of social media. But if you look at Zionist lobbying efforts, BICOM in this country, AIPAC in the US, this idea of, and it's talked about by Nick Davies, Flat Earth journalism, Flat Earth News, rather, I think. This old book now, look, but I can remember the chapter in particular. It's an astonishing piece of journalism where he talks about, and I've talked about this on the show many times, the barbed wire approach with regards to public relations and Israel. So if, the Today program covers a story in a certain way, let's get 1,000 people to send emails in complaining. And that's not going to get anybody fired or suspended. What it does is it puts a seed in the producer's mind. Look, anything that's remotely contentious that relates to Israel, I don't want to cover it because it's just too much headache, too much friction. So that's the barbed wire approach to PR. That's really been developed by Zionist lobby in the US and the UK over many, many decades. I think you're right. In terms of social media, it became the norm. It became a habit through people who viewed themselves as progressive, often, by the way, against other progressives. I don't know how many boycotts Novara has been subject to over the years, but I think you're absolutely right. The experience of the last year, particularly post-Gaza, post-October 7th, I think if that doesn't impress the importance of freedom of association, freedom of protest, freedom of speech to everyone on the left, then I don't know what will, right? Sometimes the minority is right about something and they should be able to express their opinions on it. And that's how actually history moves forward. And that's a Marxist idea. That's a left-wing idea. That dissent is one of the catalysts for progress. If you prohibit dissent, you're gonna stunt progress. So I hope it's a change. I personally think something has shifted. I actually think in many ways now I look at the right online and they remind me of the left 10 years ago. Well, hopefully that means something positive because the left over the last 10 years hasn't really gone many places good. But yes, they're very much adopting many of the worst aspects of sort of left-wing identity politics over the last 10 years. By the way, including on this subject, some of the people who would say that I don't believe in identity politics, it's all awful. If I say to a British Jewish person, I disagree with your views on anti-Zionism, you're saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, I disagree. One of those people would say, how dare you tell a Jewish people, they get to define their own oppression, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'd say, well, there's also objective facts, right? There's a history of British Jews in this country going back 100 years who opposed Zionism. There was a Rothschild that opposed Zionism. Edwin Montagu, he was a member of, I think, Lloyd George's cabinet. He was the minister in charge of munitions in the First World War, British Jew, practicing Jew. Unlike Disraeli, he was an anti-Zionist. So actually, I think that's a really dopey, stupid thing to say. There are also these rather annoying things called, objective facts. But the exact same person who would say that, this minority identity politics is all nonsense. The minute it comes to somebody saying anti-Zionism equates to anti-Semitism, well, they get to define that stuff. Huh? I thought you opposed that sort of worldview, standpoint sort of anti-racism, right? It all depends upon what X person says. Objective facts don't matter. What you think doesn't matter. Though that's what you've been criticizing the left on. But actually, when it's somebody you agree on, when it relates to a country, Israel, which you view as a bulwark against, let's be honest, Muslims, all of a sudden you change 180 degrees. How convenient.